There's only one thing better than a singular set of unwarranted opinions.
Bananas.
There are only two things better than a singular set of unwarranted opinions. But today, it's BOGO, baby. Brian, would you like to go over our disclaimers?
We might miss something when we go over these lists. It might be something you like. It might be something we like. But we definitely forgot it. The other disclaimer is that even if some of these shows have problems or nuance, we're just talking about the things we like about them.
So these are shows or movies we either rewatched in 2022 or watched for the first time. There might be something that came out in, like, let's say 2018, and we're using it as this list because we either just watched it or rewatched it.
They're also mixed media. We counted really animation, live-action movies, live-action shows, just about anything that we watched.
So, do you want to start with your 3 honorable mentions with no real detail?
Number 1, Community. Saw it about 3 times this year alone, probably like 20 plus overall, because it's my comfort show. Weird: The Al Yankovic Story, where Weird Al Yankovic is portrayed by Daniel Radcliffe. If I tell you anything about this movie, it will be too much. You should just go watch it. It's very funny, and you're in for a ride. Lastly, Prey, Prey, which is the latest installment of the Predator movie series. It was very good, and I am going to include one little spoiler for it to get you interested, which is to say at one point the Predator swings a bear trap on a chain, and the bear trap hits a guy in the head, and then bear traps his head. Sort of like Saw, but much faster.
I think I saw the prequel for that. Eat, Pray, Love? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one where the Predator preys, but after it loves and before it eats.
My honorable mentions are Do Revenge, then I have OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, great animated show, and then Gunpowder Milkshake, a satirical action movie that's just really funny.
Now, I've heard you talk a lot about the latter two, but I don't know if I've heard you talk about Do Revenge? Dear Revenge?
Do Revenge.
Do Revenge.
Like you're doing it.
All right, 10 seconds or less, just...
It's 2 girls want revenge on their particular antagonists, so they team up, but then there's a plot twist, and that's the movie.
Wow.
So do you want to start with your number 10?
Absolutely. So, my number 10 is a bit of a selfish pick. You might know, Shannon, possibly, that I'm a fan of the Hellraiser series.
What?
Yeah, I know, who knew? Possibly have a giant tattoo of Pinhead on my arm.
What?
But the new installment, which was a Hulu original, I believe, came out this last year. And while it doesn't quite hold a candle to, like, the original first few movies for me, I think it was the best one to come out in, like, 25 years. For anyone who's not aware, the Hellraiser series is, like, a very long and tumultuous series of horror films starting in the 80s. This one sets up a really interesting new canon. I think it's possible it could give the series new legs, kind of building on its sort of reworked lore. So if you're looking for an opportunity to jump into a new series, kind of at a modern touch point, I think it's a great opportunity to do so. I will say you should still go watch the original, though. And maybe the second and third and fourth one. Like a quadrilogy.
Someone needs to humble horror movie directors, because there's no way you can make 10 good movies about the same thing.
I think this was the 11th what that just came out?
Oh my
I
god,
think.
I was saying 10 to be dramatic. My 10th pick is Derry Girls, because I rewatched the whole series in preparation to watch the 3rd season this year. The only reason it's so low, because I love Derry Girls, is because I feel the 3rd season was a little lacking. I still think it was good and I very much enjoyed it, but I feel like the first 2 seasons that I rewatched really stuck out to me. It's such a good balance of, like, serious themes and then lighthearted themes and, like, what it is to be coming of age in a time. I don't know, man, it's really good.
We're really all over the place here. I mean, I went from Hellraiser to Derry Girls, and that's just the first 2 that we picked.
Derry Girls is fantastic.
I agree. I've only seen the first 2 seasons, but every single time you decide to rewatch it, you and Michaela speak in Irish accents for, like, at least 3 weeks going on afterward.
What's your number 9?
My number 9 is the only one that technically counts as a rewatch, so we're getting it out of the way early. In fact, I would argue it's probably why it's as low as it is, because I love this film. And it is Shin Godzilla, which I think came out in 2016, but I'd have to fact check myself on that. I saw it some years ago, pre-COVID, when I was on a plane. And I think I only watched about 2/3 of it, which is why I'm giving myself the pass in this particular situation. For anyone who's a fan of kaiju movies or monster movies or anything really in that vein, this isn't really quite like that. Because 99% of the movie is just looking at the bureaucratic process of how a government would react to a giant monster walking onto the shores and starting to destroy everything.
And how is that?
Interesting. I was looking it up because I was curious as to why the film is exactly the way it is. Because I do love it. It's so weird and kind of off the cuff for like a Godzilla film. And it turns out it's supposed to be a bit of a criticism of like that bureaucratic red tape and like government's lack of response to issues, possibly nuclear ones, because that's, you know, Godzilla's whole shtick. Which sounds pretty cool. I like that as a concept. I don't know enough to comment on that. What I can comment on is Big Monster good.
Big Monster good.
Big Monster good.
Anything else on Shin Godzilla?
He's really cute. I want to get a plushie of Shin Godzilla, but like in his first form where he's got lots of guts flopping out of his gills as he walks on four legs down the streets of Tokyo.
Cute. Yeah. My number 9 is Amphibia, which is one of those shows where the highs of it were super high for me, but the lows were kind of low. And you know me, I mostly watch cartoons, so I was like, I can't not watch Amphibia. And I think they nailed Found Family. I think they stuck to their guns with making decisions, because I know with isekai, that's always the...
Oh, yeah.
Like, which world are you going to choose? And I really appreciate when I feel like the writers actually do come through with what they're, like, writing as this whole big internal conflict. And I thought the animation was really fun and refreshing, because I feel like with cartoons, it's the last place right now where creative, new, and particular styles are being used, whereas I feel like with movies, things are starting to have the same art style, and I kind of like when there's something unique.
Absolutely.
So I like the fact the Amphibia characters' heads look like they would make their bodies fall over.
Oh, yeah. It's stylistic, which is nice because you don't get that as much nowadays.
Yeah. What's your number 8?
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Are you ready?
Is it the fucking Muppets?
It's the Muppets Christmas Carol, motherfucker.
Wait, they do the Christmas Carol?
Yeah, it's the Christmas Carol.
Like, they just do the Christmas Carol.
They just do the Christmas Carol. And I'm going to say it. I'm saying it. It is maybe one of the most heartfelt and genuinely true to form representations of the Christmas Carol. Like, they take some liberties, but it's very well done. It's got that classic Muppets charm. There's a lot of heart in it. And Michael Caine does maybe one of the best Scrooges that is ever been done. Like, and it's so funny because he plays it straight, like, alongside the Muppets being the other characters.
Mine is Legend of Vox Machina, but what I very much appreciate is how good it is from an artistic perspective, meaning animation style. I think it reminds me a lot of that Young Justice stylization, which they use a lot for, like, superheroes, but it's interesting to see that not be used with superheroes. I'm also guessing that maybe they have the same studio. I'm not sure. I really like the fact that it was made not only from an actual campaign, but from a campaign with voice actors, which made such a seamless transition to screen. And some of my favorite voice actors, like, I love Ashley Johnson so much. So it's a great way that you can see how a campaign comes to life. I like the art style, I like the action, and I'm excited to see where it's coming, because I feel like it was something a bit homebrewed. I think they had, like, the largest Kickstarter or something, and that's how they made the episodes, so I don't know exactly if that's true.
That's cool.
I like the humor, animation, soundtrack, story. I think it's solid.
Yeah, I remember enjoying what I did see of it a lot.
Yeah.
So my number 7 is Comey Can't Communicate. So we finally have an animated show for your nerd YouTube channel.
Yes.
Face. Yeah, I actually don't have as much to say about this as some of the other ones, which I know is weird because I was kind of gushing about them. I just thought it was really cute. Enough so where it actually inspired me to go and read through and catch up on the manga, which I never do. You know, there's been like 2 or 3 that I've read in my entire life from like shows kind of making me want to do that. So I think it kind of speaks to how charming the episodes were. I like the cast. I think they're all really funny. I think that the main guy has that quality I love in a slightly vanilla main where they just melt your icy heart by being kind of vanilla.
Sometimes vanilla's good.
Sometimes it's a good flavor
Yeah.
profile, and I like him. I forget his name though.
So my number 7 is Turning Red. I'm not typically into the Disney movies all the time. I very much like them, but I'm not someone who waits every time one comes out and is like very, oh, I gotta see this. Turning Red, I mean, like, definitely it was aimed for people who are older than us having nostalgia because we were babies, I feel like, what was that, early 2000s?
It was probably more for the proverbial 90s kid who
Yeah.
was like also by default then still sort of a child or tween in that era, whereas like what year was it supposed to be? Like early thousands?
Yeah, I think so.
I was like, I could speak maybe.
You could definitely speak. You were born in 95.
Yeah, I don't know when kids learn to talk.
I still remember Tamagotchis and stuff, so I thought it was fun. Even if it wasn't my nostalgia, it was fun looking at a nostalgia.
Yeah.
And I liked seeing the fact that they made this whole boy band in which one of the members was voiced by Seahawk. Great. I listened to those songs on Spotify unironically.
They're good. They're just good songs. It's just good
songs.
music, you know?
And you have the power of friendship, the power of family, It's like a happy ending. It's everything I want. I really liked it.
It's a clean movie. It's a good, clean movie.
And I wasn't really expecting much because I don't think I heard about this movie until we put it on the TV and were watching it. It was really good. I very much enjoyed it, and I definitely want to watch it again soon.
I'm gonna ruin all of that good family wholesomeness with my number 6.
Oh no.
I'm picking a movie that also came out this year, I believe, Glorious.
Brian, not after Turning Red.
Oh, immediately after Turning Red, we're talking about Glorious. All right, people, I'm gonna pitch you a concept. J.K. Simmons using his dulcet tones to voice a glory hole in a rest stop bathroom. That's right, there is a character who is a glory hole. Sort of a horror movie. I'm not gonna really call it that because it's more funny than anything else. I'd say it's a comedy horror, though they usually don't appear in that order. It also kind of by accident ends up being just a little profound and has one of the wildest twists that didn't feel like unearned that I've seen in recent years. It's really good and shockingly better than you think it is, especially after you watch like the first 10 or 15 minutes.
Did you just do 6?
Yes.
So it's my 6.
It's your 6.
My number 6 is Steven Universe. And I do think Steven Universe is one of those shows where someone needs to push you through the first bit.
Yeah, I didn't include it. You told me about it, and I kind of slapped my head earlier when I was like, oh, I forgot Steven Universe, because we both binged through this real fast, and we're kind of obsessed for like the period of time we did watch it, in our mid-20s. But I do agree. I think I had tried it twice before, and like I think I just dipped after the first episode.
You're right, though. It kind of was like a which one?
Phenomena?
Well, what's it when it's only once? Is it phenomenon or phenomenon?
There are...
I love my English degree I paid money for.
There are phenomena. There is a phenomenon, but is I think it's a phenomenon, but I hate that word.
There was like a thing where Brian and I watched Steven Universe very quickly, and it became my whole personality for a hot minute. My Spotify Unwrapped this year, Mitski, Destroy Boys, Orla Gartland, and I was like, yeah, these make sense. And then it was like, Steven Universe, you listen to this too much. We're concerned about you.
Steven Universe was also in my top 5, which is funny because like I haven't been thinking about it for months at this point.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I was listening to the songs obsessively every time I like drove somewhere, and then all of a sudden I stopped. But the impact was so great that it was still in my top 5.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the animation itself is actually not great because there is a lot of inconsistency. But I think the animation from like the perspective of like how it looks is really good. So while they may mess up with scaling, I love the pastel beachy vibes.
Oh yeah. You know what? It's a colorful show. And I can appreciate that. I like that a lot.
There were a lot of filler episodes I could have done without. I was starting to be like, oh, when's Naruto coming in? You know, one of those.
LOL.
And even though it felt like it was dragging, I feel like the mixture of songs, because I love when there are songs in cartoons, the animation, the power of friendship, the characters, and the fact that some of the characters were fucked up. I really like that personally. I know that it is a kid show, so it should be catered for the kids. But if the kids like it, and I get to watch Pearl be like an asshole, I don't know, I enjoy it. I don't even know, man.
I will say I kind of disagree a little bit. I kind of enjoyed the filler, which is weird because I usually hate filler. Like to the degree that I almost consider it like non-canonical at times, or like we'll ignore it to a degree. But in this case, everyone was so interesting, and the filler episodes often were so charmingly self-contained and helped character development, I guess, that I wasn't so against them as much as I may have been, say in Naruto, where he farts on a beetle.
He did.
That was the ending of an entire episode.
God. All right. What's your number 5?
Ringu. That's Ring with the U at the end. And the reason I have to differentiate is because they made the American adaptation of The Ring. So like it's not like they called it like something else. It was Ringu and then The Ring. The OG. It was, I would argue, maybe the most solid serious horror movie I watched this year. I've been meaning to see it forever because I've heard amazing things, and Ju-on, which was The Grudge but made in Japan originally, kind of gave me a taste. I said if this is anything like the other one, it would be amazing, and it really was. It relies a lot on atmosphere and being unsettling than it does a lot of kind of jump scares and high-packed thriller type sequences that exist in a lot of modern horror. I shouldn't say that across the board, but a lot of the bigger series that exist now. It was like kind of really simple, effective storytelling. Glorious is a movie you will like if you don't like horror movies. If you are into horror movies, I would say watch Ringu. I don't know otherwise if I would suggest it.
Is that the one where you said there's like a shot of her face that's really popular?
Yes, yeah, right at the end of the film. I mean, I could say spoilers, but the movie's like almost, oh my god, is it almost 30? No, not that old, but it's getting closer to 30 than not, I guess, at a certain point
Just
in time.
like you.
Oh no. But yeah, no, at the end of the movie, they like do this like upward shot because you never see her face, and then like you just see like this eye like under the bangs, like glaring down. It's like wide open. It's really cool. And she's in Dead by Daylight.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the Onryo. So that was my number 5. We're halfway through. What do you got?
R. I bet R is higher up on your list.
You just put it here so that you could talk about it first. That's what you did.
Well, here's the thing. You're gonna have to remind me what the 3 R's were, because I remember there being like...
Revenge, Redemption, Revolution. Revolution's probably the third one, maybe.
Yeah,
Or
that
Revolt.
sounds right. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's the perfect blend of like meme action sequences, but then also just really fucking good action sequences. And the story itself is one of the best live action movies I've ever seen. And you know, I'm heavily animation biased.
Yeah.
But all 3 hours of it, which I don't have a great attention span, so that was really
It's
something.
like 3 hours minimum. They might be a little longer.
The story, the brotherhood, the song Nacho Nacho. I said, I love when there's music in there,
Yeah.
and they killed Nacho Nacho.
So can I have spoilers to the list?
Yeah.
It's my number 1.
I'm so sorry.
No, it is the number 1, and I think I should wait to talk about it. If it was my number 2, I'd do it now.
Yeah.
But I think I need to wait.
I'm good. I'm gonna wait then for you to have your piece. So why don't we go to your number 4?
Okay. I appreciate it. I have a bit of a wombo combo. The one I put down, I cheated a little bit.
I don't know what wombo combo means.
I mean, like, I comboed 2 things into one.
That is cheating. You cheated. You cheated with your wombo.
You're gonna hear the combo, and then maybe you'll change your mind.
Okay.
So I picked Mob Psycho 100. And parentheses, I'm going to talk a little bit about One Punch Man just along with it, and parentheses. The reason I'm not going to include One Punch Man as its own thing is that even though I'm in the middle of watching the second season for the first time right now, I've seen the first one at least twice before this. Mob Psycho 100 is completely new to me, though. And everything I can say positively about it, I can also say about One Punch Man, because it's made by the same guy. I think he has like a pen name of like One or something, and then it was like adapted into a manga, and it's very confusing. There's a lot of people who had their hands in this pot, I think. The end result speaks for itself. We talked a little bit about unique animation before. Very unique. Kind of ugly at times. Like, the animation is not flattering to the characters, but it's charming. I think everyone can picture in their head what they look like, even if they haven't seen the show. You kind of get that deadpan expression of either Saitama or Mob himself. The shows do this thing that's so funny where it's just humorous. Like, it starts off being kind of a pure comedy. It gets you invested, and then it kind of lets those walls fall away a bit at times to be very heartfelt. I don't know if that was the original intent. I think the shows really shine when they are being just funny, but there's a lot of good interpersonal relationships and moments where you kind of get the emotions going. I have teared up watching One Punch Man. I'm lying. I cried with Moomin Rider. He'll just ride his bike and throw it at like a monster that's like 8 stories tall.
I was gonna ask how he's still alive, and I got worried. What if he dies? I don't want to be spoiled.
Well, I'm not gonna say anything from the second season.
I want to believe.
I'm like halfway through, but it's
I want to
good.
believe they won't kill the bicyclist of justice.
And that was my number 4.
My number 4 is Dead End Paranormal Park, mostly because I feel like I've been kind of waiting for something new to come out. A lot of the cartoons I was watching came out in like 2018, 2019, and we're still ongoing or finishing up this year. And then Deadhead came out. So I watched both seasons this year, and I thought the idea was great. I love the fact it's in a theme park. And then there was that episode that had music. Like I said, I love when music's incorporated.
Music needs to be incorporated.
I think it was interesting the way they're handling the mystery. And then I feel like the way they end the seasons, you could stop right there and never pick up another season again. Or you could watch the next season. And I always like when there's that option, because sometimes I do want to just drop a show.
Yeah.
Not out of anything bad, just like, I've done what I want.
You want a sense of at least moderate closure.
Yes.
And can we also talk about how it's based on some sort of weird facet of our childhood, which is to say Dollywood?
Brian and I went with our friends to Dollywood this year, and right before that was when I watched Dead End.
Yep.
So it was making me so excited whenever they were like doing Pauline Phoenix stuff.
It's Dolly Parton. Yeah, it was just strange to see that be sort of the crux of the show, or like, I guess, an important facet of the background.
Top
So
three.
the top 3. So I picked Arcane. Is it your number 3?
No.
It's your number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I'll do you the same courtesy, and I'll just say this. I loved the animation. It's a unique one, and I think that's kind of playing into a lot of our opinions. I kind of seen a pattern here. It is in the style of some of like the studio stuff they do, I guess, for games that I play against my better judgment or will. Not League, but I think Valorant is also made by the same team. And I love that kind of cartoony yet sort of 3D style. It's flat, but like still like has pop to it. It's very colorful too, which is really neat. It has a large cast that doesn't feel not paid attention to. Even though they include a lot of characters, all of them I think get their like time on screen and are handled well and have very interesting plot hooks and threads that kind of tie together in interesting ways. And my last bullet point is lesbians.
As one should.
As one should. So I'll stop there. I'll stop there so you can do your number 2. But what's your number 3 before you get there?
My number 3 is The Owl House, because I caught up on season 2 and watched season 3, episode 1, thanks to them this year. And before I did that, I did rewatch all of The Owl House to brush up my memory. It's a really funny show. It's really lighthearted, but they're making it transition really seamlessly into something a little bit darker. I really like the fact that they're making it a little darker. And also, who's to say kids out there don't want it to be a little darker?
There's 2 important points whenever this gets brought up. Not to start TM the discourse, but one is that, I don't know, children have brains and they're developing and you can engage with them in interesting and good ways. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter, what's that old octopus who was blue and had a hat?
Okay, first of all, before you drag my man Oswald's name through the mud.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying there's a place for Oswald, but there's also a place for the Owl House, and you don't have to get your panties in a bunch whenever, I don't know, media that is family friendly, because I think that's the more important term, as opposed to children directed. Yes. But when family friendly media is able to be a little more complex, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Good humor, good animation. The fight scene animation I really love. I very much appreciate when a show has one particular type of animation and then for fight. Why are you laughing?
Because for a second we'd had a side conversation, so I forgot what we were talking about, and so I thought it was Oswald, and it's like, the fighting animation's so good. I said, what the fuck? Do I need to watch Oswald? What's his dog's name?
I think it's Weenie.
It's Weenie? He's like, that's his stand. It starts kicking the shit out of the enemy stand user.
You're the only one thinking this. I think it's impressive how much they're managing to do with this last season, despite the fact Disney cut it short. It was a little upsetting, because when you're watching the episode, you can definitely tell where full episodes would have been given. It was still a solid introduction to the last season that you need to watch.
I'm on it, boss.
All right. What's your number 2?
Better Call Saul.
Are you fucking kidding?
That's right. Ooh, I'm gonna do a video on She-Ra. I'm gonna do a video on Care Bears. Better Call Saul. He's coming in here. He's got a bright-colored suit on. He's committing fraudulent things. He's doing fraud at times. And it's really good. They're compelling characters. No one's necessarily, quote-unquote good. It's just a bunch of people who you kind of empathize or feel for, and some who you just despise. The cast is amazing. I know I don't need to speak for it because it was, wildly popular. Things go back and forth, right? If something is, maybe popular in the mainstream, people kind of kick back at it. If you feel that way, I'm not going to say anything against that mindset. What I am going to say is just give it a shot. There are a particular few core characters, including Saul himself, Kim, Mike, from Community.
And also Gremlins.
I'm sorry. Gremlins and Community, who are all just... I can't describe it, but it's like having 4 of some of the most compelling characters on screen ever at the time, and they each kind of get their own little narrative lens that you get to view through at different points in the show, and it's just really worth watching for a number of really good reasons. I binged it early this year. It's part of the reason I have back issues right now. The amount of time I spent slouched with my feet up on my bed in my little desk chair, just crushing Better Call Saul seasons.
I actually know next to nothing about the show other than it's a product of Breaking Bad.
Yeah. What's funny is that I think you, Shannon...
Me? Shannon?
You, Shannon.
Wait, not the other me?
Not the other you. Just the you that's Shannon. Would probably not like Breaking Bad, which I do enjoy. But I do think that you would really like Better Call Saul. I think maybe. Also, fun fact, Shannon and I may or may not have done recreational volleyball in the past year or 2. And her suggestion for our team name that was rejected by all the other team members was Better Ball Saul, which was really funny.
Clearly they had no taste, and I am an artist.
Anyway, I'm done gushing about my number 2.
So my number 2 that you had already introduced was Arcane. I don't know if I would have watched it had Paul not been like, hey, just give it a chance. And it wasn't even something where I had to sit through and be like, oh, I have to force myself to watch it. The second it started and I saw the animation style, I was hooked.
It's good from the beginning.
So my first bullet point, I wrote, my favorite animation style this year by leagues. Get it? Because League of Legends, and it's a good animation style.
You could have just chosen to not do that. You could have picked any other way to introduce it.
But I did it. I think the animation style actually reminds me a lot of Into the Spider-Verse a bit.
Yeah, it's hard to call it 2D or 3D. because even though it's more flat than like the Disney 3D that you think of, like that standard, it's still got pop to it. There's dimensions.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't quite have like a fully rendered 3D space.
And I think the speed is different. I think the speed that the animation rates go through is slower.
The frames, yeah.
Frames. I don't know much about League of Legends, but Paul has explained it to me in a great depth every time he gets drunk.
Look at him being here twice on the list.
It's just like every time he gets drunk, he's like, what if I draw out the map and show you, like, he showed me things about like turrets and stuff. Like, I was like, I don't know League of Legends. But he was like, hey, you should watch Arcane. I did. It was fantastic. And like I said, I really enjoy music numbers. But in this case, it's more just a soundtrack. And in this case, it's me saying, yes, let's bring back Imagine Dragons. That intro, I will not skip. So anyway, this series has the best animation I think that came out this year, personally. It has fantastic voice acting, great story, because like you said, there are so many different plots going on.
Oh, so many.
And I never feel like there's too much or not enough of something.
And characters who you never think would talk to one another or have overlapping plot just end up having that. It's these weird threads that get connected. It's very good.
I don't want to start going to the whole, like, every villain needs to be sympathetic thing.
Compelling.
Compelling
is the word to use. A character can be good, bad, shitty, unlikable, whatever, but if you write compelling characters, you're doing a good job.
The fact that this show came from League of... And I'm not saying this in like an anti-League of Legends thing, which I know is like often the internet.
I am.
The first... Because I think I saw Arcane before I ever saw anything from League of Legends. So the first time I saw like a screenshot from it, I'm like, that's what they made this entire story from?
That just looks like an overhead video game.
I didn't know. I thought it was more like your Dark Souls type of stuff, and it wasn't, and I was so impressed.
When are we getting the Dark Souls animated series? That's what I want to know. That'll be my number one in 2023.
All right, so what's your number one? What's your number one?
Well, you know my number one because we already talked about it a little bit.
I already forgot, so...
It's RRR.
Right.
To say I was blown away is kind of an understatement. The rest of the things on this list will be very high in regard to me for a very long time. RRR is going to be a movie that in 10 or 15 years I wouldn't be shocked to think of as still in my top 5, equivalent to my feelings towards Pacific Rim. It's just this amazing blend of genres that is both charming in some of the ways it makes do with what resources it has, but also ends up being this genuinely phenomenal film that incorporates both interpersonal stories along with the concepts of revolution and the decolonization of India. It's so good. And it handles, I think, male friendship and bond in a way that is very healthy and good. Or, again, it's hard to say because it's kind of intense and crazy, but, like, it's very wholesome. And, like, it's about, kings holding each other up, singing songs together sometimes.
And the bullet thing, how it was in the beginning and the end. I totally forgot about the toy right now. That was the best
it's
thing
so good.
ever.
And like I have to say, like if you watch it, it's good every time, and you kind of can pick up on different things that are very interesting in how they pay attention to detail. So at one point in time, this British general of the time gives a speech about how expensive a bullet is to his troops. And they do a flashback later, and you realize he's had to adjust his speech for inflation because of how long they've been colonizing India. It's insane. You know what I mean? Like, the attention to detail. It's a perfect movie. I'll take no criticism. I'm coming out there and saying it right now. Not one thing's wrong with that film. And that's it. That's my end of my rant about RRR.
Great. So we're going to end this list as God intended with a cartoon. Adventure Time was the first time I watched something where, despite me watching it for the first time at the ripe age of 24, I felt like I was watching it through a child's eyes. I don't know why I didn't watch it. I guess because I thought it was like the One Piece of Western animation. And I was like, there's so many episodes. I didn't realize they were like 10 minutes. And I didn't realize that there are some things that are like minor plot that builds throughout the series until towards the end. You're like, oh, there's actually a lot of recurring themes. So it had that episodic aspect that I really liked, the overarching aspect I really liked. It had weird surrealism, which I'm super into. An insane balance of like dark and comedy. The animation was basic, but it really worked. The music was less musically compared to Steven Universe, but I think they did a great job using the songs to advance the story. I like the fact that there's literally a kingdom for everything. I do want to put this on here so that you feel more obligated to do it. I want Brian to DM a campaign that's based in Ew. I think that'd be so cool because you could have all the kingdoms and stuff. Great material to work with. Anyway, it was not, fun fact, originally supposed to be post-apocalyptic. it was multiple episodes in, and they had this iceberg come in with guys in business suits, and they're like, wouldn't it be funny? So they didn't originally plan for shit
Interesting. That is wild, yeah.
And then they had, like, the mushroom wars and stuff happen.
Because, like, I know a few things about the plot, and, like, some of them are kind of, right, like, inherently based on the fact that it's far into the future, and yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think Finn is a great protagonist, especially for Cartoon Network. He has that, like, optimism, but also he kind of fucks up sometimes in a way that's, like, relatable, hashtag. I'm, like, weirdly glad I didn't watch this when we were younger, because it was the first time I felt that cozy watching a show. Also, final bullet point,
Yeah.
gay.
Yeah. That's a good bullet point to have. It was what were your thoughts this year as a whole? You know, looking now back at the top 10 things you watch compared to other years that we've experienced, what's your kind of takeaway?
I thought it was a good year.
We'll say that this was the most diverse I've ever seen a list of things that I've enjoyed. Because I want to say if you had gone back 2 years ago, my list would have been almost 100% anime and cartoons. I don't know if it's by happenstance or just what people have been suggesting to me, or it's been like a mixed bag of a lot of movies and stuff. But, you know, horror, live action, different shows, things have been stepping their game up a bit. Excited to see what else comes out in the next few years. Before we leave, do an Adventure Time impression with Jennifer Coolidge.
Gunter, I need you to go steal some arms from princesses. I'm gonna make a real big princess. That's it.
That's it. Goodbye, everybody.